but I want to officially call our business meeting to order, and perhaps they can advance the slide for me on what our members have the rights to. It is 9:05 a.m. I want to officially call to order the business meeting, the church biannual church business meeting of Word Tabernacle Church Incorporated. We are a North Carolina nonprofit 501c3. Our bylaws require that twice a year we meet with our congregation, who are our stakeholders, to address questions, to give accountability. And on the slides before you, you have, thank you very much. On the slides before you, I want to remind us of why we have gathered and what your rights are as a member. I want to say, and I do this at every business meeting, I want to say thank you. One of the benefits of pastoring at Word Tabernacle is that you allow me to pastor, right? And so we can make day-to-day decisions as it relates to the operations of the church. And God has richly, richly blessed us. But with that comes an accountability. And this is why we have the business meeting, as an opportunity to display our accountability back to the membership, who we view as our stakeholders. From the inception of our church, we have held in the early days a quarterly business meeting, and then it got changed to a biannual business meeting where we have put right in front of the congregation income, expenses, financial position, everything that we've done, ministry highlights, everything that has happened. I want you to know that when you give financially to a congregation, and we follow many of the guidelines of the Evangelical Council of Financial Accountability, which is the gold star standard, really platinum star standard for financial accountability for nonprofits. And as a result, you have the right to know how the funds of the church are being spent. We're going to share that with you today. You have the right to know that the programs you're supporting are actually doing what we intended for them to do, that we comply with federal laws, state laws, municipal laws, lots of things we have to do behind the scenes and in front of people to make sure that we're complying. You'd be amazed how many times a vendor will send us an invoice without charging us tax. And you say, well, the church is tax exempt, but in North Carolina, you got to pay the tax and then get the tax back that you paid. And so they can't take it off the top. So you'd be amazed how many things that we have to do day over day just to make sure that we're compliant. You have the right to a timely and courteous response about any inquiries you have about finances and programs. Of course, you also have a right to give cheerfully. Amen, Pastor. And regularly. And one of the things that we do, I would encourage you to check the church website. Every year we have an independent outside CPA firm audit our finances. We've been doing that for many, many years. And we post the audit. We post it on the website, so people never have to worry about what's the status of the financial audit. We put it right out there in front of everyone to see. And you want to know that the organization, the church, is responsible in how we govern. So that is the reason why we gather. It is all biblical for us and scriptural. I always like to read 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 20. In the New King James Version, it says, avoiding this, that anyone should blame us in this lavish gift, that's finances, which is administered by us, providing honorable things, not only in the sight of the Lord, but also in the sight of men. And I'll skip all the way down to the Message version because that's my favorite translation of it. The Message version says, we don't want anyone suspecting us of taking one penny of this money for ourselves. We're being as careful in our reputation with the public as in our reputation with God. And so thank you for being here today. The agenda is before you. We'll have scripture reading and then prayer. I'll come back with our morning manna because the word is so prevalent for us and preeminent for us. And then Angela will come with the revenue and expenses and our financial position, followed by Kyle and Stephanie with their reporting of ministry and operations. And then I'll conclude with the State of the Church report. At that time, we will open the floor for questions. So if you're here in the building or you're on our East City campus, if you would ready your questions, and then you'll need to give us your member number and your name before you give your questions so that we have that as a matter of record. If you are visiting with us, we welcome you to our business meeting. Our bylaws do not allow you to make comments or ask questions, but we are happy to share all of the information that we're now sharing with our congregation. So again, welcome. And at this time, we'll have our morning scripture and then morning prayer.
Good morning. I'll be reading Colossians chapter 1, beginning at verse 9. And so from the day we heard, we have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. Amen.
Good morning, family. Excuse me. While the scriptures that have been read is sufficient, that God has placed this upon my heart, a very familiar scripture that will lead us into prayer, and most of us are familiar with it because we use it in the spiritual gift class. So when I think about the vision and I think about this meeting, I find Ephesians 4 and verse 7, and then I'm going to skip and read verses 11 through 15 as we go into prayer. Hope my iPad. And it reads, but grace was given to each one of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for the building up of the body of Christ, until we attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. And the 15th verse, rather speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way to him who is the head unto Christ. And at last, the 16th verse, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. Shall we pray? Father, we thank you so much for this day, and we thank you for this purpose. Father, we have come here to hear the shared vision. We thank you so much for the vision that we have here, and we thank you that it is used for the expanding and the building of your kingdom. And Father, we thank you that if we are to carry out this vision, we have to have chemistry. So God, you have given us Ephesians, and you told us how we could work together to use our gift to carry out this vision. So we thank you so much for each individual gift that you have given to us. So Father, help us to continue to use it to the glory of God, And Father, help us to help build a better unity among our nation, among our community, Father, among our city, and within the churches. Help us, Lord, to build this love, to expand this love, and let us cry out for your love, that we can be the best saints that we can be. So, Father, as we come today, and allow me, as we celebrate Black History Month, I thank so much of that great central institution of our community, the church, which allowed us to use our gifts, gave us a platform for our gifts. Father, we ask that you will continue to preserve and to protect and to cultivate it. Now, Father, be with each one of us as we go throughout this meeting. We thank you that you have called us here collectively. So we appreciate you for the chemistry. And God, that is the foundation and the basis which we want to continue to build upon. Help us now as we go forward. Be with us. It is in Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Everybody good? So I want to spend a few moments before we get into the nitty gritty, and Elder Max just prayed this, and I appreciate that. I want to talk about vision. And I want to spend a moment talking about the importance of vision. And so in Proverbs chapter 29, in the 18th verse, we know it, where there is no vision, the people perish. And really in the Hebrew, it says where there's no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. They run buck wild. They actually go backwards, is what it says. And so, it is my dream, my hope, that I desire to be a person of vision and that I pastor a people with vision. And so I want to talk briefly about the importance of vision. I want us to understand why it matters and what happens when we don't have it and what happens when we lose it. Two guys are in prison. There is one window in the prison. They're in the prison cell. There's one window in the prison cell. They both stand in front of the window of their prison cell and they look out. One man sees bars, another man sees stars. It's all about vision and perspective. And so let me say something to just introduce this conversation. Number one, introduction on your handout on your note sheet. Vision is a divine portrait of potential. It is a divine portrait of potential. It is literally God showing a picture of what is possible. And when we look at our futures, when we look at our families, when we look at our churches, when we look at our communities, we should look at it from the lens of what potential it has. Now, when we look at Proverbs 29, we see three things that I want to lay out for us about vision. The first thing, when we think about vision, this is what we should think about. We should first of all think about the possibilities that challenge us. We should be challenged by what is possible. Everybody say, what is possible? And I want you to get a hold of this for a moment. We have to recognize, y'all, I'm a student of ABCD. The ABCDs are asset-based community development. I'm a student of that. I studied that in grad school. And we have to look over at people, at communities, at our church, and we have to be challenged by what is possible. We should lose sleep when we are not living up to our potential. It should bother us when we are not challenged by what it could be. Now, let me say something about this. The issue of the possibilities that challenge us should be primarily to do a greater work for God. Everybody say greater. Now, this is very important because this is where we are as a ministry. Now, next month, 17 years. Where we are as a ministry is we've not even really begun to accomplish everything God told us to accomplish. All we have been doing is adding tools to the tool belt. And now that all the tools are in place, now we get to do the greater work that God has called us to do. And that's how we have to view this. This cannot be viewed as we have arrived. As a matter of fact, tell your neighbor, we have not arrived. Right? I want you to reckon, we have not arrived. We have greater work to do for God. And I'll give you one example. I shared this with the districts, and I want to stay on schedule. I'm supposed to be done at 9 what? I'm supposed to be done at 9 what? Okay, so I shared this with the districts. We give scholarships every year. Everybody say that's a good work. But let me tell you the greater work. The greater work is to give scholarships not from the church bank account, but from the church's interest of the trust fund. That's the greater work. So we have to recognize for everything that God has called us to do, we have to be challenged by the possibilities that are still in front of us, whether it is our youth ministry, whether it's whatever ministry exists in our church, asking for our own lives, asking ourselves, what is possible for me? God has blessed many of us to buy a house. God has blessed many of us to buy a car. Come on, if that's the case, say, yeah, he's blessed me to do that, right? Now, tell your neighbor, that's a good work. The greater work is to not have a mortgage or a car note. So I should be challenged by what is possible, right? So that's the first thing I want you to think about vision, is being challenged by what is possible. Here's the second thing about vision, is not only being challenged by what is possible, but secondly, the possibilities that challenge us, and then the purpose that confronts us. The purpose that confronts us. And you're going to hear me in the State of the Church report remind you about our vision, remind you about our mission. That is our purpose. This is the purpose that confronts us. And as it relates to purpose that confronts us, let me say two things. The first thing about the purpose that confronts us is that we need to figure out what is my desire in life. What do I desire for my marriage? What do I desire for my children? What do I desire for my career? What do I desire for my ministry? What do I desire for my church? What do I desire for my neighborhood? What do I desire? Because this is what's powerful, y'all. God is in the business of helping fulfill our desires. Isaiah chapter 44, the 3rd verse tells us God pours water on the thirsty. If I desire water, sometimes we thirsty because we've not desired water, right? But when we desire stuff, it gets fulfilled. So I gotta ask all of us, what is our desire for us? What do we desire? What do we desire for Eastern North Carolina? What do we desire for the nation? I mean, I don't know how many of you have been paying attention, but you know, what's going on in Ukraine is heartbreaking. It is heart-wrenching, right? And I would encourage all of us to keep Ukraine high on our prayer list right now. And I mean, can you imagine one day you're worshiping, the next day you're being bombed? I mean, and we've got to ask ourselves now, as much as that breaks our heart, there are people sitting in communities that every day while they're sitting in their homes, they have to slouch down in fear of gunfire shooting into their house. And we should say, I desire more for you than that. And if I could be really transparent, the heart-wrenching part of pastoral ministry is desiring more for people than they desire for themselves. So the issue is the desire, but here's the second thing, not just the desire in life, but then vision gives me a direction for life, a direction for life, a reason for existing. You know, I was studying this, y'all, and I never saw it quite like this. I don't know why. I was like, duh, I've been reading the scriptures how long? In John 17, Pilate and Jesus are having a conversation. And in John 17:37, Jesus and Pilate are having a conversation. Pilate says to Jesus, "Are you a king then?" And this is what Jesus' response is. "You say rightly that I'm a king." Watch this. "For this cause I was born." Like, I'm clear about my direction. And vision gives us a clarity about direction, because when God calls you north, when somebody shows up and tries to make you go east, then you already know the answer is no, because he's giving you clarity about your direction. And so I'm done here. This issue of vision gives me a challenge to what's possible. It gives me a confrontation about my purpose. And then finally, it gives me the peril that should concern me. It gives me the peril. It gives me the danger that should concern me. I should be concerned over not accomplishing the vision. So there are two things I'll say in closing about the peril that should concern us. And I'm going to answer a question that many of you have. First of all, the text teaches us the consequences of lacking vision. The problem with any church, any business, is not that they have a vision, it's that they don't have a vision. He says people don't perish because there's a vision. People perish because there is no vision, because there is no direction. So whether it is a small business, whether it is a family, whether it is a church, whether it is a ministry, whether it is a nonprofit, whether it is a municipality, whether it's an academic organization, we need to understand the consequences of lacking vision. Solomon tells us that where there's no vision, we go backwards. Let me tell you what the lack of vision is. You ever gone to a military funeral and they play taps at the graveside? When we don't have a vision, we literally are playing taps over our future. When we don't have a vision, have you ever seen them at the graveyard take the shovel and put dirt right over top of the casket? When we don't have a vision, we are literally taking a shovel and applying dirt over tomorrow. That is the concern, the consequence of lacking vision. And then here's the last thing. Not just the consequences of lacking vision, but the consequences of losing vision. And that's the piece Let me tell you why churches grow big and die. Because they lose the vision. They forget why they came. They forget what their first love was. And what challenges us before us is we have to recognize, y'all, that we can't lose the vision. Tell somebody around you, don't lose the vision. Angela's gonna come up and give us our financial review. And I'm gonna come back and talk more about vision after all these reports. Good.
Amen. Good morning. Good morning. I am Angela Gaillard, and my assignment this morning is a financial review for 2021. I do have a lot of information to cover, but before I start, I just want to add words of welcome to everyone and appreciation for your sacrifice of time and being here this morning. Now, if you are here for the very first time on eCity, this is your very first Word Tab business meeting, or if you are in the room for the very first time at a business meeting, would you wave your hand or type that in the chat so that we can see you? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And so my task is a review of the financials, but because I know that we've had a lot of new members join in the last year, you'll hear more about that as we go forward in the meeting. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking through our financial processes, just to give you some background. It'll be a refresher for some of us, but new information for those who've not been with us before. So I want to take a few minutes to do that. Then we'll jump into the actual financial review. You all have, excuse me, a handout in your packet that looks like this, and it is the actual statement out of our accounting system for the last quarter of the year and year to date. We're going to go through that. And then you also have a sheet that has lots of charts and graphs on it, and we're going to go through that in detail. If you are on eCity campus, you all have those handouts as well to be able to download, or you can look at them later at your convenience, but we will walk through all of that in the presentation today. And so let's start with the review of the financial processes. So we want to talk a little bit about income, how money comes in. We'll talk about how money gets out. And we're also going to talk about how that information is reconciled on a monthly basis to our bank statement, how we reconcile quarterly to our budgets, and we'll just touch briefly on our annual audit as well. And so, in looking at income, how money comes in, so a couple ways we can get money, right? People can deposit an envelope, they can mail us money, or drop it in one of the drop boxes. Or we have digital giving, right, where we can give on our phone or on the website. So for envelopes, cash, checks that are dropped or mailed to us, our finance team collects those envelopes, they count them, they have a documentation that they record what they counted. That paperwork stays with the envelopes that goes to our database administrator. They deposit the money the same day they count it, so it does not sit here in the building, okay? It goes straight to the bank. They make that deposit. That bank's deposit slip is then returned to be added to that same documentation that goes to the database administrator. The database administrator enters all the envelopes in the system, and then they run a report to compare that report that they entered with the paperwork from the finance team. Also, it gets compared to what the bank says they received. And then each month, at the end of the month, we compare that bank statement to another report that we run for all deposits received during the month to make sure that we reconcile. Similarly for digital giving. Now, you know when someone sends you a Cash App, that money goes straight to your account, right? So anytime we give digitally, that money gets transferred electronically from your account to ours in a couple days. But we still have to do an import of the report so that your giving shows up in your profile. It shows up automatically if we already know who you are. First-time givers, our database administrator does have to enter that, but once that's done, we don't have to do that going forward. We still run a report for that batch to make sure it aligns with the report that comes from that vendor. So that vendor would be Cash App or Vanco for our online web payments and mobile app. We compare those, reconcile to make sure everything is accurate, and again, at the end of the month, compare to the bank statement. So similarly for expenses, a couple ways that we can spend money. We can cut a check, right, or we can swipe a card. So for checks, those are used to pay invoices, to pay bills, or check requests that come in to make payment to a particular individual or organization. That has to be approved by our exec team member, and they will indicate on that approval what account should be charged in our accounting system for that charge. The AP analyst will enter that invoice in the system. Once a week, we'll print a report that shows all the invoices that are going to be cut, what account they're going to. We review them to make sure that information looks accurate, and then we cut checks, print checks once a week. We do not handwrite any checks from our organization. Everything has to be entered through the system, okay? At the end of the month, we'll run a report of all checks cut that month, compare that to the bank statement, and make sure that they reconcile. For credit cards, those purchases should be pre-approved before purchase. They have to submit the original receipt with an expense report to the exec team member, who sends that information once approved, again, to the AP analyst, who enters that in the system. End of the month, we'll run a report, make a comparison to the bank statement, make sure we're reconciled. So you've heard me say a lot about bank reconciliation on a monthly basis, right? So each month, we're running those reports to look at all the checks that were cut, all the credit card purchases that were made, all of the deposits that were made, regardless of how that money came in, reconciling that to the bank statement. There is a volunteer who does that on a monthly basis. It's one of the ways that she serves. It's not the only ministry where she serves. It's one of the ways that she serves at Word Tabernacle Church. She's actually an employee of a bank, so she's familiar with those processes. And so there's someone outside of staff who's looking at that information to make sure that we're reconciled. She submits that spreadsheet to us where we've done that reconciliation, and we keep that on file, and it gets submitted with our annual audit as well. Quarterly, I jumped ahead too far. Quarterly, our exec team is looking at financial reports every quarter, doing reconciliation against the budget to see how we're comparing. If we have significant variances where we're way off track, we're putting in corrective actions to make sure that we get back on track, or have information to make sure that we do our budget planning better for the following year. And then finally, we do have an annual audit. Pastor mentioned that at the start of this business meeting. It is an external organization, an unaffiliated CPA firm that comes in, audits every type of financial transaction that we have. We do a 3, 4, 5-way tie depending on the type of transaction that it is. Just as a really quick example, for salary, they may pick one individual, one employee. They reconcile that person's pay stub to what actually came out of the bank, to what showed up on their W-2, to what got reported on the 941 that we send every quarter to the IRS. So they're doing that reconciliation for all types of financial transactions. They don't just focus on financial transactions. They're looking at our policies to make sure we're compliant with what we said we would do, making sure signatures are where they're supposed to be. One of the things I neglected to say is that all of our checks over $1,000 require 2 signatures. So they're checking to make sure there are 2 signatures. They're checking to make sure the finance team has signed off on the counts. So all of those pieces are done. They're looking at board meeting minutes. So it's a really full, thorough evaluation of our policies and procedures. And then they issue an opinion whether or not our financial statements fairly and accurately represent our financial position. For the past 12, 13 years that we've been getting audits, we've always gotten an unmodified opinion, which means that basically it's a clean audit. And we expect the same for 2021. That audit will take place this summer. So at our next business meeting, we'll share the results of the audit with you. So let's jump in and talk about the actual results of this year. So if you pull out your report, we're going to kind of talk through. I want to highlight some things for you as we get started. So at the top of the page, you'll see it'll highlight for you the time period that we're talking about. The top of your report should say October to December 2021. That lets you know that the first column there is going to be the final quarter of 2021. We are going to focus on the 4th and 6th columns. The 4th column gives us the year-to-date actuals, and the 6th column is just the percent of budget for those actuals. I do want to make a note that the very last column there that you see on the screen or on your report is the annual budget for 2022, so you all have information regarding our projections for this year. The top portion of the page gives us income. The next section is expenses, and the very last line is the net income or net result. So for us, for 2021, we had $4.24 million of total income for the year. That's the year-to-date column that you see there. That's 109% of budget. For contributions, so that number I just gave you was total income, everything, including ministry income, grants, other pieces. You and I have the most effect on contributions, and so we try to focus on that area in this meeting. So for contributions, we were at $3.66 million, 113% of budget. We did have a record quarter, the last quarter of the year, at $991,000 of contributions in a single quarter. Highest quarter ever for us. Yes, that is something to celebrate, and we'll talk more about that when we do our deep dive into income. Let's look quickly at expenses. Total expenses for the year, we're at $3.42 million for the year, 93% of budget. And so when we look at income minus expenses, that gives us our net income. We have a net income for the year of $820,000. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that's different from cash flow when we get into that piece. So in summary, highlights from the statement, the report itself, that's everything that we just talked about. So now let's do a deeper dive into income in particular. So we talked about total income, $4.24 million. Total contributions, $3.66 million, right? And we had that record quarter of $991,000 in contributions. The quarter income was $1.12 million for the quarter, okay? So we know in this meeting, we like to focus on the three areas that we ask our members to give. You all probably can tell them to me for those who've been coming for a long time, right? They are... Yes, tithes, pastoral support, and thrive. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have been paying attention to these boring numbers, right? So those three areas we like to cover in this meeting in particular. So you can see there that for tithe, we were well over budget. 116%, and you'll see I said 116% plus. During the year, y'all, we had pre-launch services for our Tarboro campus. Really excited about that. And so we had separate, yes, y'all can clap and celebrate that, yes. So we had a separate line item so we could just track and see traction that we were making in that area. And so you'll see two line items for each of those categories we just talked about. You'll see Thrive, and then you'll see Thrive Tarboro, right? So our tithe was $2.81 million, but there was another $13,000 that came in specifically for Tarboro during those preview months that we were there. So we were over 116% of budget. Similarly, if you look at pastoral support, the total was about $90,000. So instead of 89%, we're really 90% of budget. And then for Thrive, $455,000 plus another $9,000 takes us, instead of 130%, really 133% of budget there. So really great performance in all of those areas. We don't normally spend a lot of time talking about ministry income and grant income. For those of you who are new, the ministry income is really more of things like summer camp or after school where there's some type of service. Or maybe it's something like last night's marriage event. I heard you guys had a lot of fun. If you all haven't seen the pictures, go out and look at those. They had a lot of fun, and the winning couple is in the room today for their wonderful costume. Illustrating Toy Story last night. So things like that. So there was a small nominal fee that folks paid to participate in that. That would show up in that ministry income line, right? So we don't spend a lot of time talking about that in this meeting because it's really dependent upon the activities and the services offered by those ministries. You and I have the most impact on contributions. But we've had a lot of grant activity post-COVID, and so I wanted to share that with you all to highlight that on the report that you have before you. So total ministry income, we're about $319,000 for the year. $183,000 of that is from ministry income from the Business Operations Center for financial administration services that we are providing to Reach for the many, many grants that they have going on. And so it's not really a grant because it's actually a service that we are providing to them. In terms of grants, we did have of that $259,000 that you see there, 190 plus of that was the PPP loan that was converted to a grant. We talked about that at our last business meeting. But in addition, our Health and Wellness Center had $31,000 worth of grants in the year. The Impact Academy, can't wait for you all to hear about that coming up. Y'all, we started a school in 2021. Yes. And they are already working on grants. They had $25,000 worth of grants in the year. And then we had $10,000 grant for our new co-working space. So lots of activity, lots going on. So wanted you to be aware of all of that activity. So let's look at some trend charts. For those of you who have those reports ahead of you, you can turn that over and look at the report that has all the charts and graphs, and we're going to start in the upper corner there. So we're looking at contributions. Again, that's what we want to focus on. And if you look at them on a quarterly basis, this is the trend that you will see. I've gone back to 2019 because I did want us to see kind of pre-COVID to where we are now post-COVID. You will see if you look at that purple bar, the bar is the actual dollars given, okay? The lines that you see there are percent of budget. So I want to focus on the bars. You will see that we have had an increasing trend year over year over year. You'll see the averages that we have highlighted there for you. So really good performance there. We are 30% higher in 2021 than we were in 2019. So great growth in contributions. Again, that record quarter that we talked about, that very last bar that you see there, that's fourth quarter 2021, $991,000. Now, if we look at this on a per capita chart, that's the next chart we're going to look at. That is, per capita is your total dollars given divided by the total number of people who gave in that period. So looking at this chart, the bar that you see there is the number of givers, okay? And the line that you see there, the dotted line, is the per capita, how much gifts per giver. You'll see an increasing trend, a clear increasing trend in the per capita number, correct? You also see a clear decreasing trend in the number of givers, right? And so I believe you all have there the breakdown. I don't think you have the middle number, but you'll see 2019, on average, we had over 2,000 people giving every quarter, right? Our per capita was $339 at that time on average. 2021, we've had a stark decline in the number of givers. We average only 1,442. But our average per capita is 635. For the fourth quarter, with that great quarter that we had a record per capita giving, $696 per given, almost $700 per giver in the quarter. So seeing an increasing trend in the dollars given, but the number of people participating in giving is going down. So let's look at that in terms of members versus non-members. Our members are participating in giving only at a 50% rate. So only half of us participate and worship in giving, okay? 54% of adults. So that's an area of opportunity for us. I'm looking at the frown on Pastor Kyle's face, right? That's an area of opportunity for us. We are 75% of total givers in the period and 84% of the gifts that are given, okay? Non-members, you'll see the reverse. Our average gift per giver for members is $1,237. For non-members in the second half of the year, that number was $713. Now, that's a 54% increase from the first half of the year, and a lot of that has to do with a large gift that we received in the fourth quarter from a partner who wanted to support our Thrive efforts. And so that's what you see there. I do want to make a note that we did have 109 first-time givers in the second half of the year. 46% of them gave more than once, and 18% of them have become members. So great growth that we are seeing in the organization. Yes. So very quickly, we'll touch on this because it's a slide that we've looked at before. We know that participation in giving increases the older we get, right? And so the older we are, the more we participate and the more we give. But I do want to give a shout out to our young people, and I know they had a hangout last night too. Thank you so much for your participation in giving. If you all look from the first half of the year to the second half of the year, they had the largest increase in participation. So they went from 11% to 14% of them participating in giving. Yes. Now, 19 to 50-year-olds dropped 4%. And then those of us over 50 increased by 1%. So kudos to the young people. Thank you all so much. I see one in particular sitting in the audience. I won't embarrass her by calling her name, but she was one of the ones who participated in giving. She's very active in ministry. Appreciate her and her parents and all parents for how you all are training up a child in the way that he or she should go. So thank you all. And I just want to give you all acknowledgement for what you are doing with the young people and the Next Gen Ministries. Pastor Kyle is going to talk a lot about that. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide because it's a review of everything that I've just talked about in terms of income. So now let's jump into expenses. So if you look at the bottom portion of your report, again, highlight those numbers that we talked about, $3.42 million for the year, 93% of budget. And for the quarter, we're at $1.17 million in the quarter in terms of expenses. So when we are looking at expenses on that report there, you have it broken down by each center of operation. The two centers that have the highest amount of expense are always the same two centers, and that's WTC Inc. and business operations. And those are the biggest centers because those are really more umbrella kind of areas that cover expenses for the entire organization. So things like depreciation, property insurance, insurance for employees. So those overarching expenses that cover the entire operation and not just specific to one area. So they tend to be bigger. They were also the only two areas that were over 100% of budget for the year. We have year-end accruals that did have an impact on that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But then we did have one other center that was close to budget. Center for Media and Broadcast was a little over 90% of budget. And I just want to give a shout out to the media and broadcast team. They have been a lifeline to our church, to our community, to East City campus throughout this season. And so you all, they do so much, not just for events like this, but they do a lot of support of the community. And so really, really great work that we are seeing there with a media and broadcast. So for the other item that I wanted to just note here is that new line item, the new center that was created for the Impact Academy, the school that we created. And again, Pastor Kyle will share more of that when he comes up next. So let's look at those trend charts. So the next section of your chart page there is talking about expenses. That first chart, again, is a quarterly look at our expenses. You will see that it also has a bit of a trend upward. If you're looking at each year, you will see a very clear low Q1 trending upward to a really high Q4. We've talked about that in this meeting before. And that is because, and you'll see a note there at the bottom of your chart, that it includes the reversal of year-end accruals or the addition of year-end accruals. So in Q1, we are reversing out the accrual that we take in December. So each year we have to accrue for the expenses that we know that we have incurred, but we have not yet paid. One easy example is salaries, right? Our staff gets paid the month after the month of the work that was done. So our December hours, we get paid for in January. Well, for accounting purposes, we have to put that on the books as of December 31st. It's going to get paid in January. And so if you don't reverse it back out, you're going to really have double payment on your books. So you put it on the books December 31st and you reverse it back out January 1st. So because of that, our Q1 number always looks really low, and our Q4 number always looks really high. So there's a second bar that you see there in gray where we've taken the reversals and the accruals out to try to even that out a little bit. Even when you do that, we still see an increase year over year in expenses. And so why is that? So I'm going to take those lines away so you can just really see the bars. The increase that we're seeing really tracks what we're seeing with contributions. It's because of the growth that we are seeing in our organization. We've had so much activity in the last 2 years. You all are familiar with the construction project. A lot of that gets capitalized, but not 100% of that gets capitalized. So there's expenses associated with the construction project. Because of that construction, we have higher depreciation. We'll talk about depreciation when we talk about capital expenditures. In addition, we have the new school that came on board during the year. That's a higher cost. Pastor says I have 5 minutes. I have a whole lot to cover in 5 minutes. So I'm going to speed up to try to get this because I think it's important information. Our staffing, y'all, I looked at our W-2s that we issued for 2021. We sent out 82 W-2s. And in 2019, it was 51. So that's a 61% increase in staffing. Some of that's associated with the school, some of that's associated with the grants, but it's growth, right? And so reasons for the reasons that we're seeing increased expenses. That's a review of expenses, but I'm sorry, let me back up to functional expense areas. So functional expense basically breaks down your expenses. Instead of looking at it at that chart where we looked at it by center, we're going to look at it by function. And that's a requirement of all nonprofits for our auditing standards as of 2019. And so this is another way that we report out on our expenses. You'll see 51% is associated with employment. That's not just salaries. That's the payroll taxes that we have to pay. That's the health insurance that is covered for our employees. That's retirement benefits. All the costs associated with having staff and having people, number one issue there. Depreciation, we've talked a little bit about. Office and occupancy, that's everything from utilities to run the copier to the printing that you do on the copier for running your office. So that's the breakdown by functional expense area. Then want to touch briefly on capital expenditures. Capital expenditures do not show up on your income and expense statement. They show up on your balance sheet. This is the investments that we've made in property, equipment to be able to function and operate and build out our facility. We spent $4.3 million we invested in all of our campuses over the course of 2021. So, summary of capital expenditures and expenses and what is our resulting financial position. We talked about net income for the year. We looked at that when we were on the other page, $820,000. I do want to make a note that we had a net income loss of about $50,000 in the quarter, but that was not cash flow. That is because of the year-end accruals that I mentioned, right? Our year-end accruals for 2021 was $330,000. 2020, it was only $150,000, so it more than doubled, right? So let's look at the difference between net income and cash flow. So for the year, we had net income of $120,000. That's our income minus expenses. What's the net result? For cash flow, we had a loss of $57,000. That's deposits minus withdrawals. So there's a gap there. There's a difference. What is driving that difference? In order to understand that, we need to understand the differences between income and deposits and the differences between expenses and withdrawals. And so, very quickly, The difference for income and deposits was about $3.7 million. A little over $3 million of that, right at $3 million of that, was for the construction loan that we got during the course of the year. So that showed up as a deposit, right, because the loan got put in our bank account, but it did not show up as income because it was not income to us. It's a loan, it's a liability that we owe back, so it shows up on our balance sheet. That's the biggest one. In the interest of time, I'll show you expenses and withdrawals, very similar. So expenses, we're at $3.4 million, we discussed, right? But for withdrawals, we were at $8 million. That's because we paid out a lot for the building. We talked about the capital expenditure of $4.3 million. So that money got paid out to vendors and folks that did the work, but it did not show up as an expense on our income and expense statement. It shows up on our balance sheet as an asset. And so those are some of the many differences that help us reconcile that difference. Our balance sheet, we ended up at $3.4 million in assets and a resulting equity position of $6.6 million as of December 2021. That is a $3.8 million increase in assets and $821,000 increase in equity position from prior year. So y'all, that is great. That's just like basically your net worth as an individual increasing nearly $1 million. So really good position there. So financial position summary, we've talked through all of those pieces. Just key takeaways. I think the biggest pieces are we are seeing an increasing trend on income despite the decline in givers. We did have a record quarter into Q4, in part because of the large gift from the partner for our Thrive Fund. We do have an opportunity with member participation. So if you would be prayerful about that, kudos to our youth as they are continuing to increase in their participation. We are seeing an increase in expenses for various reasons. Costs are going up. The building, we're growing a lot as an organization, but our net income was positive. We had negative cash flow because of construction and some other pieces, but we are in good overall financial position. Thank you so much for your faithful financial support of the organization. As a reminder, any questions, please make sure you type them into the chat when we get to the Q&A session. And we now have Pastor Kyle coming to share on C3 success.
Well, hello, everybody. Hey, y'all. So just a reminder that for those I know you aren't visiting with East City, I know everyone who's come into the room has gone through the check-in process, but make sure you go to quicklinks.wordtab.net to check into the business meeting. And as I talk about what's been going on in the area of C3 and also our reach and community collaborations, I want you to be thinking about two things, all right? Both of them are in terms of partnership. One is I want you to think about how everything that Angela just talked about, how everything that we're going to talk about in a few minutes is possible because of giving. And I want you to think about how you can continue, for those of you who've been giving, how you can continue to support it. And those of you who may not have been, may say, you know what, I do understand the work that's going on, and I want to give toward that work, right? The other thing is to think about how you can actually plug in serving, because we realize that our giving is about our finances, but it's also about our time, and it's also about our gifts, our abilities, and what we can do. And so as we talk about the next generation, I want you to be inspired by how you can be one of those people who pours into the next generation and one of those people who pours into the community in general, okay? So y'all ready? All right, here we go. All right. So first things first is we're going to talk about the Impact Academy, all right? The Impact Academy is amazing. I am really happy that we have been able to do this, and I say this sincerely. It is because of Word Tabernacle Church givers that we have been able to do this, because there's a lot of work that has to happen before the doors of the school open up. And so we've been able to hire a director for the Impact Academy, a daily operations director. We've been able to hire teachers for the Impact Academy. We've been able, right now we have 17, actually, since this information was submitted, we now have 18 students enrolled in the Impact Academy. And that is a huge deal. There are right now a lot of preschools that are actually closing down because of a lack of enrollment, because of everything going on with COVID. Families can't afford the care. It is hard to find teachers right now, but we are fully staffed, and we have 18 students enrolled, and we're capping our enrollment at 30. And so this is a really good space to be in, and we actually have some folks on the wait list, as you can see right now, who are working some things out. And as an academy, one of our goals is, we have multiple, but one of them is to be able to provide quality childcare and education while also making sure we're honoring the personhood of our teachers. And so right now, it is completely legal and normal and average for teachers to be making $7.25 an hour. $7.25 an hour, that is minimum wage. But here's the deal, that's their full-time job, investing and closing up and laying the foundation for children so that they then go into our public school systems. And so our early childhood is a huge impact, not just for the children in the preschool, but also our general education in our community. And so what we've been able to do at the Impact Academy is have a pay scale model that goes based on studies and partnerships with the state, and that we are able to our average teacher is making $18 an hour when the typical teacher is making $7 an hour, okay? And so that is because we believe that people should not just make enough money, they should not be underemployed. And if you're working full-time, you should be fully employed, amen? And fully paid for that employment, all right? And so it is because of the vision and things that we've learned from Pastor G through teaching and justice and how we put those things together. So we have 2 new enrollments. I said another student has joined since last week. We have 5 teachers, and in those teachers, we have bachelor's degrees, 2 bachelor's degrees, 1 associate, and 2 who are continuing their education. And so that's another plus of the Impact Academy. Not only are you able to come here, but you're also able to grow in those spaces. And in our teachers, 3 of them have 10 plus years of early childhood experience. And so some of these teachers have been in this game for a while. We have a couple of them who are members who are in this game for a while. And we've been able to get some grant money. So right now, as of last year, we were able to get $29,000 in grant money. And we also plan on working to come an NC pre-K, in which case the state will come and help to undergird some of the work that's been done as well. And so that's the Impact Academy. We're really, really excited about what's going on there. That's just some of the stats. Now, the open enrollment is there. And I want you to know, if you have folks who need some support, we are actually partnering and accepting vouchers. And so they can do that through DSS. You can go to the Impact Academy, WTC.com, the Impact Academy, WTC.com, in order to see what the philosophies are, the visions for the school are, and all the things that we have going on, as well as finding scholarships and supports. Because some people say, well, I can't do early childhood education because I can't afford it. But the reality is, right now, there is not a waiting list for vouchers. Right now, Down East Partnership for Children has scholarships without a waiting list. And so sometimes it's just about making people aware and making sure they're taking advantage of the opportunities. And the Impact Academy, we're going to cap off at 30 students. And so get in while you can fit in, all right? And if you have a 4-year-old or 3-year-old who's going to be coming into school next year, we will be more than happy to receive them into the program, all right? So the Impact Academy is going and thriving. Our next thing I want to talk about is our children's ministry, all right? So shout out for the children's ministry, all right? And our director, Ayanna Cooper, an amazing group of investors. So the children's ministry functions with birth through 3rd grade, okay? Our next generation ministries cover birth through 29. So we're going to kind of walk through these real quick. Children's ministry is birth through 3rd grade. And so our average Sunday attendance in the Rocky Mount campus is 25, because since we've been back in the room, y'all, when we are here, the children's church is going on. So make sure you get your child plugged in. That's 25. I do love this, that on Sunday, the East City campus, for those of you who gather online, we have an East City option for our children, because you are here and they're here to support you as well. So you have folks tuning on that, 10 people tune on that on average. Our average Tuesday attendance for the Rocky Mount campus is 15. And while we have 15 students in the classrooms during Bible study time right now, we also have 10 students who are logging in on the East City campus during Bible study for children's ministry, all right? This is a big deal, all right? And so we have 5 on our Thriving Thursday small group that Ayan has put together for families. And then we also have 4 new investors who have come on board. And y'all, it's difficult to get people to come and stick and serve, and I encourage you to. It is a great opportunity. If you want to say, hey, I will run check-in. If you want to say, hey, I can serve 1 Sunday a month in the classroom with some children to help them understand Jesus. I will come on a Tuesday. I will come on a special events like Shonda. She comes and she is our special events investor, right? And so please get plugged into the Next Generation Ministries. And I love on Sunday mornings when we see folks walking across the pulpit, when we see baptisms, I love that right now I'm seeing a wave of a lot of our next generation starting and establishing a relationship with Christ. And so we know that there's 13 who received Christ and baptism within the last quarter. And so make sure that you're getting your child plugged in. These are foundational dynamics that they need in Jesus. All right, and it continues. So not only do we have our children's ministry that functions on Sunday morning church, and we have our Tuesday night Bible study, but we also have a lot of programming that supports the children's ministry. And so one of them is the after school program. And so after school took a pause while COVID was going on and shut schools down, but it jumped right back up and going. And so we have 3 volunteers that come and volunteer with the after school program, right? That is in their heart to just invest, and they come and do that. We have 44 registered students and 7 employed counselors, all right? And this is a big deal. I want us to understand when Angela was talking about how the increase has gone with our WTUs and stuff, when people have jobs, they are able to thrive. Employment is a key aspect of that. We can offer those programs at the church, and we need people who can do it well. And so because of your giving, because of your connection to the vision, because we're saying that church is not just about Sunday morning, as Pastor often says, they sure did have church, but did the kids have a safe place to go after school where they can learn? They sure did have church, but are the birth through 5-year-olds, are they actually closing gaps where they need support? Well, here at Word Tabernacle Church, we can say, yes, they are, all right? And so we have 2 employees who are created and implemented enrichment curriculums that are actively being used at Bienvenue Elementary School and the Assist After School program. All right, so we're impacting not just those who are coming here, but we're also impacting elementary schools in the area through our after school program. And this slide has a lot of content in it, but I just want to say the biggest thing that we have here is that we need to understand that the children aren't the future of the church. The children are the church, period, right? They are whole people in the same way that a 35-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 60-year-old, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And so we love that there's so many people who support that when you see a child in the church that you go up to them and you greet them. And we appreciate the fact that we are all a part of the village. And one great person, we have opened up our Tabernacle campus, and we'll be coming back in Easter. But we have a person who is committed to being the Tabernacle nursery director. And so we want to thank you so much, Kwanda. Kwanda Collins is going to be our Tabernacle nurseries director. And so that's going to be her full-time way of serving in the Tabernacle campus. All right. And so after our children's ministry, which goes all the way up to 3rd grade, we've done some shifts. Okay, there's been a change, a little shakeup. All right, and so we have started now to break down from children's. It used to go to 5th grade, which is ending in elementary school, but now our preteen ministry starts in 4th grade. And so children's ministry is birth through 3rd grade. Preteen ministry is 4th through 6th grade. And what that does is it gives children some stability. When everything else around them is changing, they're changing to middle school, they still can come to church and say, I still have my same group of friends. So socially and emotionally, that's a really great thing. We also realize that the 5th grader is ministered to very differently than the 2nd grader, all right? And so they're able to get ministry in a very specific and niche way. And so with our preteen and our youth are going to be 7th grade through 13th grade. And oftentimes I say 13th grade and people say, Kyle, seniors are in 12th grade, but we have early colleges here in the area, so they are welcome to come all the way into their super senior year, okay? And so with our Bible study gatherings, we have on average 15 on our East City campus and 20 to 30 in our Rocky Mount campus. The ministry is great. It is a beautiful thing. And so we have students who are plugged into ministry and have throughout when we were doing things on East City only. We have students who log in from Maryland, students who log in from Greenville, Winterville, Zebulon, all because they want to know and engage in ministry, right? That's when our children's ministry and our preteen and youth. And so right now we have an average of 25 to 30 who are gathering in our Rocky Mount campus. We also have a church at study group for our preteen and youth. And so the way that this is built and set up is Sunday morning is happening. We're in service. At 11 o'clock, there's small groups that are happening down the hall. And so we have a small group for our preteen ministry. We have a small group for our youth ministry. And we also have a small group for the parents of the next generation. And so while our students and our children are in their small groups, the parents have now gathered together, and it's been really, really good. And we would love to offer a small group for our children's ministry. Unfortunately, we need more people who are willing to serve and invest with the children. And so if you are willing to say, hey, from 11 to 12, I will show up on Sunday and hang out with the kids, please let us know. Contact ayana.cooper@wordtab.net to make sure you're plugged in. We can offer so much to everyone, but the thing that we need is people who are willing to say, I will go. I will do. All right, that's all. That's the only limit we have. All right, our next slide with the preteen and youth ministry, I kind of went over that and gave an overview, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back because I did not talk about this. So we have 4 new youth investors with our ECD campus and Rocky Mount campus, and we've had 42 Bible-based youth touches and 35 report card submissions in the fall term of 2021. So we know that one of our goals with report cards is not just to see what your kids are doing, but to see how we can best serve the children. And so we're starting up a new ministry. We're starting up a new focus on education where Tia Lucas, who owns Dynamic Learning, and she's a member here at Tabernacle Church, she will head up our academic enrichment and support programming for our Next Generation Ministries. And so yes, that is a huge thing, right? Because here's the deal, everything we need is in the room. We just need people who are willing to say, yes, I will do it, right? And so she's coming on board. We get the report cards. We may see that a child struggled from one quarter to the next in science or math. We say, hey, Tia, this person needs some support. And we have people like Easter Taylor, a parent who's saying, hey, I'm a math teacher and I will show up and tutor anyone who needs. And we can offer the support, but we need the grades. We need the report cards. It's not just for the recognition on Sunday. It's not just for the certificates. It's to understand what is the picture of what's going on, because we want Sunday to be good and we want students to thrive out on Monday through Saturday, and education is a huge part of that. And so please get plugged in and make sure you're turning those things in. So after our youth ministry, our next jump for our Next Generation Ministries are 18 through 29 years old, okay? This is the young adults, all right? Y'all look at somebody and ask them if you're a young adult. And be honest. I know some of us are, ooh, I used to be one, all right? It was a good time while it was a time, all right? And so the young adult ministry is 18 to 29, and even that is broken down into 2 subsets. We have our 18-21 ministries, which is specifically for 18 to 21 years old. The goal of that is post-high school is a very unique time in life. Some people are going straight into workforce, military. Some people are furthering their education. And there's a very different dynamic between 21 to 25. And so our goal is to be able to meet people and serve them in those capacities. But at the same time, anytime, those of you who are watching on East City, those in the room, anytime you hear young adult, please recognize 18 to 29-year-olds are welcome into this space, all right? And so we have 3W Ministry, which meets on Westland's campus every Thursday at 7 o'clock. And so all young adults are welcome to go there for a small group that we call Bible Lab at 1821 Ministries. We've had 21 Bible-based touches in our 1821 ministry. We've had given $19,500 in the 21-22 school year, all right? And that's a huge, and I love that Pastor already talked about it. We love that we can write that check. And it's because you give. It is because you give that a member of Word Tabernacle Church can have a $10,000 scholarship going to college. That's a huge deal. That is a huge deal. That's $10,000 that they don't have to go into debt over. That's $10,000 that's going to pay for their books, for their room and board, for their food. You, Word Tabernacle Church, are helping students. And over the 9 years that we've done this scholarship, there has been $163,000 given, $163,000 given toward that scholarship. And one day, with the vision, we'll be giving that off the interest, amen? And we can say the full ride and not just the $2,500 a year. And we have 9 colleges and universities that are represented and engaged in 1821 ministries. So we serve not just those in Rocky Mount, but those who are throughout different college campuses through our eCity opportunities. All right, and so our young adult ministry, the goal here is to make sure that people are connected to community and to Christ. And so we've been able to do that through fellowships. We've been able to do that. We have had an intern who came along to serve and support. And so make sure that if you are interested, make sure you get plugged into those opportunities. And the last thing we talk about with community collaborations before Pastor Stephanie comes on up in my last 2 minutes here. All right, we all hear about the Reach Center. The Reach Center is amazing. All right, the Reach Center helps support people in ways that we will never fully understand. The Reach Center, while it does, yes, someone needs some support in terms of paying a bill. Yes, the Reach Center can help out with paying some utilities and getting medicine, but it is a holistic development. It is a goal of making sure that people are housed. And I want us to understand, these are just the numbers of people who've been served, but think about how great the need is in our community at large. There have been 3,033 screened application calls. 3,033 screened applications and calls. And when you hear these numbers, I also want you to think about, how can I help screen more? How many more people can get helped, screened, and supported if we got some more volunteers to come into this place, right? And so this is a call to you. I can call, I can talk to people, I can help process through applications. Y'all get in contact with the REACH Center. There have been 155 appointments for rent, utilities, medication, food assistance, and resource referral. They have launched small group series about healthy relationships and thriving through chronic illnesses. Y'all, this is the REACH Center. This is a center who is making sure that people have what they need holistically, all right? So I'm gonna go through these stats real quick. REACH Center has been tapped to be the housing agency for Region 9 in North Carolina, okay? And here's the deal. These systems, processes, and capacities that we've been able to build up over the last 16, almost 17 years has allowed us to be able to serve in excellence, has allowed us to be able to serve with systems that people are now saying, whoa, you're the model. And so for Region 9, REACH Center is now the housing agency serving 8 counties. And imagine, that's a lot of people, right? Provide rapid rehousing and housing prevention, and then also oversee and coordinate entry process to ensure that homelessness and homeless individuals can have easy access to services. Because there's lots of things that are out there and available to people, but if they can't get to it, it's hard to make that connection. So REACH Center helps do that. So that's 64 families housed. 3,450 households and that are served. And we do every Thursday, there is a food distribution pantry support here. 151,070 pounds of food served to our community. That is a huge deal, all right? That is a huge deal. And so Pastor Stephanie's going to go ahead and work your way on up here, Pastor Stephanie. But I want us to think, as I said on the front part of this, how can I help support by giving to the church so that the church can make sure the finances are in the right spaces? But also, how can I support by doing what God has called every Christian to do, to serve the church and the community?
Amen, amen. I know that you see that we're doing a lot here at Word, and the Lord we are responsible for a lot. But I really hope you can sense the heart that we're doing it in and the reason that we're doing these things. And we're doing it, why? Because we want everyone thriving. And so we really want to communicate that our goal is to have a standard of care where people can connect to the church. Because as you see, we feel that the Lord has placed the church here to be the solution to the problems that we sense in the earth or we see in the earth. But we also want people to feel communicated to. We want to make sure you are informed and then that you're cared for as the church. And so one of the things I'm very proud about is as a church, we take leadership in some of the secular arenas, meaning when COVID came on the scene, our health and wellness director, Christy Arnold, took action, and we became one of the leaders in that, in awareness and education and really providing resources to the community. And so from our Center for Health and Wellness, we had over 1,500 COVID vaccines that were administered. That's big because access to that, amen, in our areas for our people that was low and COVID was high and so we wanted to make sure that we were a resource. We administered 115 COVID-19 tests, and that was a partnership that we established at the very end of the year. And so that is just in the month of December. And so if we would have started that partnership earlier, I know that number would have been higher. 600 families received free medication, and we know the cost of medicine is going up. And so we had, a medicine drive, and 600 individuals received that. And then we know that sometimes when something is on the forefront, other things can get looked over. Flu was still a thing, and so we did flu vaccines. Because we are concerned about the whole person, not only just the physical health, mental health as well. And so our counseling department, we poured some resources. So shout out to the Purvises, Ms. Singer and Reverend Stanley for just heading that up. We have premarital counseling is very important. We had 9 couples to complete that. We had 185 individual counseling sessions, amen, and 51 couples received counseling. And this is not on the slide, but we also had 25 people to receive certification as a mental health coach. That was an extension of that office because we saw the demand in that. We as the church, we want to continue to be the avenue, and we will continue for spiritual support, right? We do a lot. And I think people, when we go to meetings, they forget that we are a church because we have so many resources, and we do, and not the typical church may have that kind of influence. But we are serious about our spiritual support as well. We responded to 65 prayer responses just from our ECD campus. So people submitted a prayer request. Our prayer counselors, kudos to Minister Jackie and the intercessory prayer team and the ministers and the elders. We were able to respond, like call, email, hey, let's connect with you. And then we have 144 prayer opportunities outside of Sunday morning. So on Monday at 12 noon for East City, as well as some people are in the room. Then we do midnight prayer on Wednesdays. I don't know if anybody has ever connected to midnight prayer. It is really, really good. And then we have our Saturday morning glory. One of the things as the church spiritually supporting, we supported 117 funerals in the year of 2021. That is a lot. That means our members are going through things. We are experiencing things. And so we support it. And we want to make sure that we stay healthy ourselves so that we can support our members in that way. Now, look, we have Lady Angela talked about the financial reports. Our decisions, I was very pleased that people are still saying yes to the kingdom of God through Word Tabernacle Church. We had 197 decisions and 155 new members. That is at 80%. That means 80% of the people who said yes followed through with the process of becoming members. And then we had 28 baptism. And that's really good because about 10% of those new members are from our East City campus. So we have people from Maryland, New York, Texas, Florida, Charlotte, Virginia, those who are 75 miles outside of Rocky Mount that said, I want to connect with this ministry. And so I'll end with this. How can you help? You've heard this over and over again about we need you to serve. And you can help by, one, taking the spiritual gifts class. That gives you, we have it every month, and that gives you an understanding. It's not just for new members. It gives you an understanding of how the Lord has equipped you to serve in the kingdom. All of us have a spiritual gift. So get knowledgeable about yours so that you can know how to serve our campus. And then share your testimony, share your ministry activity. And so last night I was posting pictures about the marriage ministry because I wanted people to see that we take pride and we have a priority of supporting marriages. And so I was showing pictures. And then attend service and Bible study. We do not realize the equipping that we get to serve when we're not in the room to get that teaching. And so our pastor does a wonderful job with teaching. Then you can support by giving and attending over time. I want to say this, care leaders are needed. We are committed to making sure all of our members are connected to a care member, a minister, and an elder. And so we need care leaders. If you are willing to be a care leader, let me know. And then our East City campus, every city electronic city at our East City campus. It's a place, it's thriving, and so we need support staff. I want to shout out to Minister Jackie and Minister Heather, who are our support staff members for East City. They're on East City right now, and so thank you for that. And I want to give a shout out to all of the district care leaders who do faithfully serve, and I want to say thank you. And so I am going to bring Pastor up now for the State of the Church report. And if you have any questions about any of those areas, let me know.
Well, if you're on East City campus, type in some emojis. I'm not sure whose water this is. Y'all can have it. Levon, take this for me, please. They're going to hand you State of the Church report. I want to read it and share it with you. And then we'll open up for questions. And then after questions, I'm going to take a last 15 minutes to share something personally from my heart. And so please don't log off before I get an opportunity to do that. And so State of the Church report is coming at you. And want to share my heart a little bit. For some of you, I got in trouble. I think we had one business meeting, Ms. Harrell, I think it was one business meeting, I didn't do one, and she just told me off. I mean, she just reminded me about how important it is to do these reports. And so want to just share my heart a little bit. And so they'll be posting this on East City campus. There's also a link where all of this will be available to you online if you missed today's meeting. And so this is the State of the Church report from the Office of the Senior Pastor with today's date. I think everybody should about have one. Everybody has one. If you don't, raise your hand. We'll get you one real quick in the room. All right, everybody's good? Good. Dear Wordites, grace and peace be multiplied to you and to your family. For those of you who may be new, allow me to explain the origin of the State of the Church report. In 2002, I was watching then President George Bush deliver his State of the Union address. I was interested for two reasons. First, the president had officially formed by executive order the Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives, which I've always believed to be one of the most significant executive orders in our history. Second, it was the first presidential address since the 9/11 attacks in New York City. He began his speech by saying, "As we gather tonight, our nation is at war. Our economy is in recession, and the civilized world faces unprecedented dangers. Yet the state of our union has never been stronger." As I listened, I sensed the power of sharing a balanced yet honest analysis of where an institution stands to its stakeholders as a tool to educate and empower. I decided I would do the same for the church. So every business meeting I share, quote, my heart and head on paper. And it's my hope that this honest and balanced analysis of our ministry will motivate you and minister to you. It's hard to believe that I write to you just weeks away from two anniversaries. On March 12th, 2022, we will officially celebrate our 17th church anniversary. And on April 23rd, 2022, I will celebrate my 22nd pastoral anniversary. The years have been filled with moments of grace, growth, glory, giving, and grief. I thank God for these years. The grace of these years. God has just been good. The greatest evidence of God's grace is those who have received God's gift of salvation. Over 2,300 people have been baptized in our church. And for every soul that has been converted, I am thankful. I hope you are also. The growth of these years. This past year, we saw, I thought it was 196, but Pastor Stephanie says 197. So this past year, we saw 197 people join our church. It's also encouraging to know that we have nearly 500 members between the ages of 18 and 29, which is a sign of future growth. During 2020 and 2021, churches and other institutions had a choice to make. They could either idle or they could accelerate. We chose to accelerate. And as a result, we have 4 operational campuses: Rocky Mount, Tarboro, East City, and Impact Point. For the first time in our history, there's activity on every campus. Rocky Mount campus, home to the Impact Center, Impact Academy, Word Alive Bookstore, Fitness Center, and various centers for excellence. that house our programs, our co-working space, banquet room, our broadcast studio, etc. And Tarboro campus, home to our Tarboro church plant and all programs under Edgecombe Excellence. East City campus, home to all electronic platforms accessible in every city. And Impact Point campus, home to Impact Point Memorial Gardens, our partnership with Competitive Edge Performance, and future site of recreation and other development. This is an encouraging sign of life. Additionally, you have heard of the ministries that have begun, staff that have been hired, and programs initiated. The glory of these years. There's nothing greater than God's presence. And as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've learned to experience God in ways we had not previously. More worship has entered our homes than ever before. Now we can worship in the church, in our home, or in our communities. We have consistently offered prayer 3 times weekly, and thousands of prayer requests and people have been prayed for. The giving of these years. None of what has happened is possible without the financial support of our members. Many of you have just been generous, exactly like God is. We've been able to give thousands of dollars to missions, to local and national nonprofits, college scholarships, and so much more. The grief of these years. Of course, not everything about this past year and beyond were joyful. We lost members also. In some cases, because they moved out of the area or joined another ministry or have been called home to heaven. We had 13 member deaths in 2021 and have already had 8 in the first 2 months of this year. And others are experiencing sickness or sorrow. Our church has remained sound and solid and honoring to our founder, Jesus Christ. And for that, I'm thankful and proud to be a part. I hope you feel the same. With all this reflection comes the sobering reality that there is now another year requiring our time, attention, efforts, and energy. What will this year look like? How has my life changed because of the pandemic? What now? Well, I'm glad you're asked. For starters, here at Word Tabernacle, we're going to remain laser focused on both our vision of everyone thriving and our mission of people empowering people and communities in all areas of life to the glory of God. How we do these things may look different, but the motivation behind what we do is the same. I love our mission more than our model, and I hope you will also. I also hope every Word member will commit those statements to memory. We cannot ignore the last 2 years, and we cannot and should not expect there will be a, quote, back to normal shift. That's not happening. That's a good thing. Here are a few of my thoughts. For your easy reference, I'm going to number them. Number 1, East City campus weekends. 3 times this year, we will only meet on our East City campus. The East City campus is our online platforms. Currently, those platforms are YouTube, Facebook, our church website, and Zoom. Our goal is to eventually have everyone gather on one platform, but we aren't quite there yet. So on Sunday, May 29th, Sunday, July 3rd, and Sunday, September 4th, 2022, we will not have in-person services, only online on our East City campus. These services will be pre-recorded and will allow for our members, staff, and those normally leading on Sundays to gather with family and friends at watch parties. These watch parties will be housed in subdivisions, community centers, etc. Following worship, those gathering can eat and discuss the service. These East City campus weekends always are scheduled on holiday weekends. I am asking every member and partner to participate in a community-wide or district-wide watch party on East City campus weekends. Number 2, community. I get the convenience of online worship and Zoom meetings, but there is still no substitute for authentic relationships with people. I am asking every member and partner to commit to some type of human connection in the church. Here, we call this a small group or a Thrive group. I recognize the importance of our time, so I'm not talking about consuming our lives with another thing to do. Rather, I'm saying when the men or women or youth or singles or couples gather, join them. At the end of 2020, there was a Gallup survey showing mental health ratings. Across the board, people reported doing worse. The only group that showed improvement was people who regularly attended religious services. As a pastor, I think the takeaway for us is the value of doing things together. If you are within a 75-mile radius of one of our in-person campuses, Rocky Mount or Tarboro, then I would ask you to consider attending in-person worship at least 2 to 3 times per month. If you are beyond 75 miles, then we want to help you connect with other people in your community for 2 to 3 times a month in a small group, or to consider watching worship together. This is also a great time to develop individualized community plans, ICPs. The key here is to be intentional about gathering with other believers. Number 3, communications. I am asking every member and partner to subscribe to both the church and to my digital platforms to review the weekly ministry matters and the monthly intersection newsletter. Also, be sure to opt into text messaging and phone blasts. There's a lot of information being shared every week, and we don't want you missing anything. We are converting our church membership database to a new platform that will allow us to communicate better and more personally than ever before. So please make sure we have your most recent phone number and email addresses. Can I just be frank with us? It makes you look real suspect as a member when there are activities going on that you don't know about just because you won't read what we send or subscribe to our channels. Number 4, care. Every member has an assigned care leader, a minister, and an elder. Do you know the name of yours? That's important information because they are the first line of ministry and personal support, and they can best help you access all the opportunities and benefits available to you as a member. I am asking every member and partner to arrange to meet your care leader, minister, and elder this year. Our Center for Faith and Family is happy to help with this. Number 5, cultivation. Our spiritual growth is still paramount to our mission and vision. As your pastor, I'm given by God 2 messages for our members every week: the Sunday sermon and the Tuesday Bible study. These messages will serve to grow you like nothing else I can offer you. I am asking every member and partner to commit to these times of growth. We no longer offer a noonday Bible study. During the Lenten season, which is March 2nd to April 14th, we will offer Wednesday in the Word, which is a 45-minute worship experience held in the chapel of our Rocky Mount campus or on the East City campus. We will continue offering Bible study on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. This year, we've begun teaching through the book of Philippians. And I will continue to offer master classes and other teaching intensives throughout the year. I would also add that your church offers a broad range of classes, workshops, and seminars geared to develop us in the areas of faith, family, fitness, and finances. You don't have to attend them all, but also don't miss them all. Number 6, contribution. In a recent sermon, I spoke about obedience and obligation as a motivator of our giving and serving. Simply put, when someone has been good to you, then we should feel a sense of obligation to do all we can for them. There's a biblical expectation placed upon us that we both give to and we serve in the local church. I could write pages on how we benefit by giving and serving. I am asking every member and partner to serve in one ministry and to give financially, faithfully, and cheerfully tithes and offerings. There you have it. I call this Every Member Campaign. I hope you'll join me as we experience God and all he has to offer like never before. Thriving James Gaillard, Senior Pastor. And so that is the update, y'all. Let me take your questions. The mics are on. If you go to one of the mics, if you're on eCampus, if you would type in your member number, name, and your question, and people are monitoring those areas, and we will take your questions. You just want to line up at one of the mics, give us your name, member number, any question, any comment, any concern. Don't, not a long commentary because I'm going to cut you off, but I want to take your questions. And so I'll go ahead and give it a moment to open up. And then I want to share one final thing. No questions. Let me give a moment to see what's on East City. Does that red light blinking tell me something? Is that telling me something? Or is it just blinking to be blinking? All right, any East City campus questions? If you type those in, we'll give you just a moment. I need one of them Jeopardy countdown things. Whatever it is. We need one of that while we're waiting for it. So real quick, while we're waiting for East City campus questions to come in, would you take just 45 seconds, communicate with somebody around you, tell them what was the most significant or the most insightful takeaway for you from this business meeting today? So just talk to somebody around you, tell them, ask them what was most insightful, what was most helpful.
Hello, I'm Sita Redding. My member number is 5078, and the question is, how do we go about finding out where our elder and our minister is? That is a great question. And so the ministers and elders know who their people are. So every minister and elder has been assigned to a district. So we have care district leaders, minister for that care district, as well as elders over zones, so a group of care districts. And so we are moving to our new system, and so you will be put in those groups, so you would know what elder group you're in. And so in the meantime, we are informing the care district leaders, and it's also going to show up on your ACS profile, but that may not be as accurate. I mean, not accurate, accessible now since we're transitioning over. So, but you will know, and you'll know who it is. And if you ask us, we'll tell you.
So I might want to also just ask every care leader to just start scheduling, every district care leader start scheduling meetings with your folk. Every minister start scheduling meetings. Every elder start scheduling meetings. And so everybody knows everybody. It's such an important process. I think it's a huge opportunity for us to make sure that we're caring well for all of you. Any other questions or comments? Anything coming in from the East City campus? I had checked. We had about 300 people on various platforms watching on the East City campus, so I'm grateful for all of you on the different platforms. The winner for today was the YouTube channel, so I'm grateful. They had the highest number of participation when I jumped on and looked. We are encouraging everyone. We are fast moving. I'm trying to move us to a platform we own and not one that we rent. And what I mean by that is we don't own Google, we don't own YouTube, we don't own Facebook. And so if they woke up tomorrow and said, we don't want churches on here anymore, there's nothing we could do about it. And so we are working very hard to get us on a platform that we own, that we control, so that we can make sure that we're ministering well to people and all of our East City campus people can be on one place. But stay tuned, we're working on it. Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. I am Kyle Johnson, member number 948, but I'm speaking on behalf of the East City campus. And so our first is from Monique Brown, member number 1036. Our question is, are the cemetery stats and financials included in the finance statement?
Are the cemetery stats?
Yes.
Are they included in the financials?
The cemetery stats and financials included in the finance statement. So I would imagine, and Monique, you can give more insight into this if I'm saying this incorrectly, possibly if people are paying for the site or that space, is that also included as income for the statement?
I'm almost sure it is, but I'll let finance answer.
So I'm not sure what's meant by cemetery stats, but the income from the cemetery is included in the financials. Any income that we receive as an organization is all included in the reports that you received today.
Thank you very much. And we have another question from eCity, and these are both from YouTube, the winning platform. All right, so we have member number 174, Judy Parker, is asking, will the church be set up to accept cryptocurrency in the future?
We're progressive, but not quite that progressive. So I'm not willing to make that commitment at this time. Listen, I won't ever say never, because who ever thought, I remember we had to fight to do Cash App, and it's a major platform for us now for giving. So not at this time.
And that's all that I have so far from eCity.
Okay, any other questions in the room? You got a question? Okay, I'll take your question.
Okay, so I am representing eCity Campus. Miss Mary Knight, member 4047, asks, is the school and ministry equipped to set up to receive children with special needs? If not, could you give some insight on if or when that will happen?
Yes. So, hey, Miss Mary. So, one, I just want to say thank you for your advocacy. Two, I would say as far as the Impact Academy is concerned, our goal is to be able to offer quality education and childcare for every student. We also want to make sure that we are not receiving students without the ability to offer that true childcare. And so when it comes to special needs, every child is different, but we want to make sure that our staff has the certifications, because if a parent comes with the expectation that you will be able to meet all the needs of my child, our staff needs to have that capability. So we do have ongoing education offered to our staff. And so once those staff members have that ability, we will make sure that those families with special needs are aware of that. That timeline, I'm not sure. I cannot commit to saying that'll be next year or next month. But when it does happen, we will promote it. As far as the ministries in terms of after-school program, summer camp, and children's church, I say this sincerely and authentically. Everything we can do is limited only by people willing to say, yes, I'll help. Literally it. And so we have worked to establish and create and build up a ministry for those with special needs. Right now they are integrated. All students are integrated into the space. We've done stuff with one-on-one buddies, as families can say, hey, this is my child and this is their special case, this is their special need. We have investors who've committed to be one-on-one with students. But again, when you do that, you have very limited access because we need a one-on-one investor. We're also working to develop the space for those with special needs, whether it be because of sound or touch and things like that. But our biggest thing is we do have a person, Tony Austin, who has volunteered to be the head of our special needs ministry outreach within our ministry. But she also needs a team of people, experts, and I know in membership we have some folks who have skill sets. If you're able and willing to say, I will volunteer, I will help to set up the structure, I have some resources, we would love to get that, because every child deserves to be able to experience Jesus in their own way and what makes sense to them. And so we would love for there to be a thriving today. We just need people who are able to say, I either know already and I'm in, or I'm willing to learn.
Okay. All right, other questions? Anything else from eCity or from the room? Anyone from the room, you can go right up to a microphone. I know we have a funeral, I think at 12 or 1? 12? 1? Okay.
This question is from eCity from our website. Jerry, member number 292. Jerry Carter, is the age of COVID. I am really concerned about my physical health as an older member. Will I be considered, quote, on the fringe, unquote, if I do not make physical contact
until there is more clarity about the effects of COVID?
It's a great question, and I appreciate it, Jerry, and thank you for all your years of faithfulness. So let me be really clear, or clearer. I'm trying to lay forth guidelines over things that I know we can do. It is a difference between being an 80-some-year-old man having health challenges and being concerned about returning versus somebody who's 32, perfectly healthy, and going to the club but not going to church, right? Those are two very different dynamics. And so, please receive my guidelines with a balance of grace and law. And so we know within our own individual lives what we have kind of decided to go back to. And so if we've decided to go back to somewhat of a normalcy of life, then I think the church needs to be included in that, and that is the spirit of my remarks. The reason we're making such a heavy emphasis on the East City campus, about the East City campus, is because we want to be able to offer every member a substantive experience with God if they don't want to come into the room or if they cannot come in the room. So I hope that clarifies it, Jerry. I appreciate that. Any other questions, comments? I have one final issue to cover and we'll dismiss. I won't take any questions. You may have questions out of my next statement, but I will not be receiving questions from my next statement. So, any other questions? You can always pull the exec team, staff, you can always pull them aside if you've got questions. And so, anything else on the East City before we move on? All right. Okay. Well, thank y'all for being here. Thank you for attending. I'm really grateful for all of you in the room. For those of you that are on East City campus, can we give each other a big applause as a thank you? Grateful to see all of you on East City. For some of you, this is going to be a very new experience. Over the 17 years that I've been a pastor here, one of the things that we've done is I don't use the pulpit as I don't air stuff on the pulpit. I think pulpit is for preaching. And then at business meeting, if there are issues that need to be addressed, I use business meeting as that opportunity to do that. So this will be little new for some of you, but this has been the culture of our ministry. So I'm gonna tell you how I'm feeling, and then I'm gonna try to tell you why, and then I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing about it. So I've hit a wall. I think I'm officially at the burnt out point. My first job, I punched a time clock. It was my very first job in high school. I've been working since I was 14. And my first job, I punched a time clock. A whole lot of my first jobs, I punched time clock. And you punch, for my young people who don't know anything about that, it was a physical card and a machine, and you punched in when you got in, you punched out at lunch, you punched back in when you finished lunch, and you punched out when you left the day. And the cool thing about it was when you punched out, you could do whatever you wanted to do because you weren't on the clock. And I started the church, as you know, 17 years ago, and I feel like in December of 2004, I punched in, I clocked in. And 17 years later, I've yet to clock out. I've never, in my opinion, clocked out a single time in 17 years. I've been pastoring since I was 22. For 22 years since I was 35. To give you a lens of how long that is, my daughter Jada is graduating in 3 months from UNC Chapel Hill. When I started when I started pastoring, she was 3 months old. Jasmine, who's a freshman at UNC Chapel Hill, wasn't even born when I started pastoring. My son Kyle was 14 when I started pastoring. He was our first drummer and our first sound technician. So that's how long this has been. So I haven't been able to really be off or to clock out, and I've hit a wall. I'm tired. Pastoring is just hard. It's God's calling, but it's hard. And I have just notes because I don't want to miss anything and I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't say. Pastoring in a pandemic is even harder because who knew what to do? and who knew how to really respond. And then pastoring through a construction project is even harder. And I think I had an illusion that 17 years in, it would just get easier. But it's not getting easier. It's getting harder. And so I pastor three kinds of people. I pastor people who work so hard to help take the weight off. I'm so grateful for y'all. And then I pastor people who are weight. They're not trying to take the weight off. They want you to carry them. They're not, but that's okay, because that's ministry. People come to church because they need help. I'm good with them. But it's the third group that makes it hard. And that's the group that hovers over the top of the people that are the weight, and they push the weight down. We got a lot of them. And for 17 years, I've been able to hold up the weight, even when people are pushing down. But something's kind of shifted for me, because for the first time, I don't feel like I can hold the weight anymore. And I always used to brag, and I know we shouldn't have a spirit of pride, but I'm just don't know who else to be other than honest. I used to be very proud for the fact that I had a lot of capacity. I'm good, I got capacity, I can handle this. I'm spent now, I don't have anything left. And because of that, for the first time in 22 years of pastoring, 17 years of being here, for the first time in my life, I'm scared. I'm afraid. Now, I want to be really clear. I did not say I have a spirit of fear. I said I'm afraid, and it's a difference. I'm scared because I don't know what the stress is doing to me that I don't know about. And so I'm scared because I'm changing. I used to have good days and bad days. Now I just have days. And every day is I'm just numb. So I'm changing. And I wake up and I'm as tired as I was when I went to sleep, because I feel like I spent the whole night fighting in my spirit. So I'm scared that, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have had a stroke in the middle of the night. Or I'm going to wake up and I would have had a heart attack, or I will wake up and I would not be able to talk anymore. And so I want to finish strong, y'all. And I don't think I'm done, and I don't think God's done with me. But if I keep doing exactly like I'm doing, I feel like I'm not going to make it. And I feel like I'm not going to finish. And so the biggest issue is I don't heal fast anymore. Being a pastor means you gotta just be willing to take the shots. That's just part of the call. Folk come for you. They criticize you, they abuse you. That's the call, right? I'm used to that. The difference is I'm not healing as fast anymore. See, when I was a little boy, I was very athletic when I was younger, but I used to break bones. So my childhood, I probably broke stuff 8 times. I broke both my thumbs, I broke both my wrists, I broke both my arms, but I healed fast. And the next season, I'm right back out there, or a couple months later, I'm right back out there. That's the key to pastoral ministry. The key to pastoral ministry is that people beat you up all week long, but if you can just get to the pulpit healed on Sunday, you won't preach to them in your hurt. You won't beat them up with the microphone. So the key to this thing, to really love the congregation, is you gotta be purged by Sunday morning. I'm not healing anymore fast enough when Sunday comes. So I'm scared that I'm gonna start preaching from my wounds and not from my scars. And there is a difference. When a wound is still bleeding, it's still pussy, it's still fresh. A scar has already healed up, and you can say, y'all, this is just what happened to me, but I'm good. You don't want to see anybody stand in front of you bleeding and pussy. But that's kind of the place I'm in. And so, because I want to finish strong, I got to do some things a little different. Y'all, we don't think of it like this, but nobody in this church has experienced more funerals than me. I'm not a hireling. I'm not some paid dude. And God called me, man, to love these people, commit my life to them. So you stand over these caskets week after week for years. These are people that you pray with and you hold hands and you laugh together. And they keep people that you've married, you bless their children. You went to their home when they got it and you blessed their home or blessed their new business. And you tasked with having to lay your hands on that casket and say, it becomes my final task and assignment as their pastor to commit their body to the ground. You know, every time I bury a black man under 40, when I look in the casket, I don't see that black man, I see my son. But I got to get up here and I got to preach, man. I got to make sure people are good because that's the calling, and I'm good with that. But I'm not healing as fast anymore. And so, because I'm not healing as fast, I'm spending a lot of time just in my feelings and not in my spirit, man, where I know I need to minister to people from. So I need a minute to figure out how I keep pastoring the people that keep holding the weight down. Because I'm called to pastor them the same I am to pastor the people that hold up, that help with the weight. I don't get to pick and choose who I pray for. And I don't get to pick and choose who I minister to. And I don't get to pick and choose who I love. The only thing I can choose right now is how do I stay as healthy as possible to keep letting them beat me. That's the call. They're not going to stop beating on me. The issue is how do I stay healthy enough to take the whooping? And I need to figure that out. And so I got to figure out how I handle my feelings. And I want to be really clear. They're my feelings. This is not about, I'm not saying you're doing it or these are my feelings. But I got to figure out how I handle my feelings that my critics won't shut up and my supporters won't speak up. I got to figure out how I handle that. I got to figure out how I handle people nodding, smiling, and I know in my spirit because the Holy Ghost has told me that they're not for me. And the stress of it is theological for me. It's a spiritual fight. It's nobody at all would look down on me because I would have said, well, Buddha is not Jesus. And I know we got somebody who wants to work with kids or somebody who wants to play or somebody who wants to be on staff or somebody who wants to lead a ministry, but they think Buddha is Jesus. And we got standards here. And I'm not willing to relax the standard. I'm not willing to compromise our convictions. And so there are things that happen every day that stress me because they are forcing me to compromise my convictions. And I can't do that. And so for the hope of not offending members and for the hope of appeasing people's feelings and emotions, I try to just hold it all in. And now it's got me to a point where I can't heal from it anymore. So, it don't seem like a big deal to y'all, but when people don't serve, like that stresses me. Like, because Theologically, I believe that saved people serve. I believe that theologically. I believe that biblically. So when members don't serve, it's like you're trying to force your theology on me as the theologian of the house. I don't think that's right, because Buddha is not Jesus. And I thought y'all called me here to be the theologian of the house. So it doesn't seem like a big deal to look to a room full of people who don't love God enough to serve him, but it's a big deal to me. May not be a big deal to you that half the church doesn't give. Theologically, I believe that you cannot love God if you don't give. I just believe that theologically. Buddha isn't Jesus for me. For God so loved the world, he gave. People who love, give. And no, you do not love the ministry if you don't give. And you got to stop trying to force me to believe that, because I don't believe that. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. God is clear. Your heart is never somewhere where your treasure is not. Have you ever gone to a wedding and as the bride walked down the aisle on her special day, people started speaking and they started saying stuff while she walked down the aisle? Them shoes don't match that gown. And she hears it. How you wearing white and you had 3 kids already? People hear it. You've been with 3 people, you whore. They hear it. It's her special day. Look at all this weight you gained. It's her special day. And for the invited guests, run her out of her own wedding. Pastor, what does that have to do with anything? When people slander the church, belittle the church is the bride of Jesus. It's Jesus' bride. You've never once been to a wedding where anyone did that to the bride. But we do it to the bride of Jesus. And to make it worse or as bad, what is the bride of Jesus? The church. Who's the church? It's the body, the gathered body of us. Us, we're the church. So every time somebody slanders the bride, they slander the body. That means every time you take a shot at the bride, you take a shot at every member. You take a shot at the pastor, you take a shot at all of us. And so I just need a minute. I'm used to people doing it. I'm just not healing as fast because I'm spending so much time doing everything else that I need to spend some time with God so that I'm strong enough spiritually to take the fight. And so I'm going to do some things in the month of March to do this. I'm going to get a physical because I'm behind in my physical. And I got to do some things to make sure I'm healthy physically and emotionally. I'm going to start an exercise routine. I'm going to spend some time, some deeper time in devotion. I'm not preaching at all in March. And so our staff, our ministers will preach. Bishop Daniel will preach our anniversary. I won't be here. I'm going to come out Tuesday night at 7 p.m. I'm going to teach Bible study. And you may wonder, why would you do that? Because that's the one thing that's life-giving for me. So I'm going to come out here Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I'm going to teach the word. I have a wedding that was already on my schedule for this month. I'm going to honor my commitment as a pastor. I committed to preaching a citywide men's service in Goldsboro on March 13th in the afternoon. I'm going to commit to that. I'm going to do some things politically because, quite frankly, it's not stressful for me. It's an outlet. But I gotta spend March figuring out how I handle the people that don't love the church, don't serve the church, don't give to the church, because I gotta pastor those folk. And so I hope y'all can hear my heart on this. I want to finish strong. There's so much more I believe God has for us to do. But I think if I keep trying to do it in my emotional state, I really think the stress is going to kill me. And so I need to get my head around that, my heart around that. So you won't see me a lot in March. I hope y'all will serve. I hope y'all be faithful. I hope you'll give. I hope you'll support our ministers, Bishop Daniel, Pastor Stephanie, Pastor Kyle, Minister Flowers. They're going to be the 4 preachers this month. And then I'm going to figure out what it looks like as we move forward. And then it's going to look different because I want to live. I don't want to die yet. I don't want to have a heart attack. I want to live. And so because of that, I want to take the moment I need. And so I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. I could belabor the point, but it's not meaningful and helpful. And so I hope you hear that it's so important that we work hard to be a person that helps with the weight, whether it's at home or in church, that even strong people who seem like they have it together could literally be on the brink of falling apart. And none of us are exempt from it. And I want to be very clear. This is not a statement of defeat. This is a statement. I want y'all to hear this. This is a statement that I'm not going to be beat. That's what this is a statement of, not of defeat. I will not be beat. And so I'm going to pull myself together. I'm going to get my head around this thing, get my prayer life right. I'm going to make sure I'm good and healthy for the fight. And I'm coming back to kick some butt and take some names. And so I want you to hear my heart about that. So that was the last thing I wanted to share. I want to ask if one of our elders, Max already participated. John, would you close us out in prayer? Everybody, would y'all stand so we can close out in prayer?
This business meeting, Lord, everything is so well defined and it's a well-oiled machine, God. Everything fits and runs and works and does. Lord, we thank you so much for the leadership, God. Every person that have a part in making it happen, God. Lord, we are so privileged, Lord, that you allowed us to be a part of this ministry at this time, God, because it's just not one person. It's all of us, God, working together, helping one another, praying for one another, crying for one another, doing, giving, serving, God. We thank you for every person in East City campus, Lord, Rocky Mount campus, Tarboro campus, the partners, God, everybody, Lord, that has a part in making this possible, Lord. We are so grateful, God. And Lord, we ask you to bless us all as we depart here, Lord. Give us all traveling mercy. And Lord, we pray that our pastor, Lord, will continue to heal, God, continue to grow, Lord, continue to be the man that he's been, Lord. He is so passionate, God, about serving you and serving your people, God. Restore and renew him, God. Build him up better than before, God. Lord, we pray this because we know you can and you will do these things, God. Lord, we're so thankful, God, for all the things that you have done thus far, Lord. And we know, Lord, this is just the beginning. Lord, this is not the end, Lord. This is just the beginning, Lord, where you're going to carry us as a ministry, Lord, this region and this state, Lord. Lord, we thank you right now for everyone that is in the business meeting and all that's said and done. We thank you and we glorify your name in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. In Jesus Christ's name we do pray. Let us all say amen, amen, amen.